Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. This is the first meeting of 2023 of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge. It is 7:33 p.m., January 11, 2023. This meeting is being held remotely and recorded via Zoom due to the Borough Council Chambers availability and is in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this remote meeting was published in the Bergen Record on October 6, 2022, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall and posted on Borough's website. The notice included the dial-in and login information necessary for public participation and access to this meeting remotely. A copy of the agenda for the meeting was made available on the Borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and included the dial-in and login information. During the public comment period of this meeting, if you would like to make a public comment, please press the raise hand button on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. The board will address you by name or by the last 4 digits of your telephone number. You may mute and unmute yourself by pressing the microphone icon on Zoom or dialing *6 on your telephone keypad. You must state your name and address prior to making a public comment. With that, Ms. Steinle, I'll ask you to please call the order.
All right, Mr. Mayor,
Here.
Mr. Caslin,
Here.
Ms. Boland, here, Mr. Merman,
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Here.
Mr. Cray,
Here.
Mr. Arkelian,
Here.
Councilman Kanigo,
Here.
Mr. Gibbons.
Here.
Mr. Esposito is absent at the moment with technical difficulties, and Mr. Bastide. I see that he's here, but I can't hear him.
Looks like Mr. Busty's having the same audio difficulties that some
Yeah,
other folks
we
were
can't
having. Colin.
Also,
Colin, if you can log out and log back in, looks like some folks are having problems with audio. So it seemed that once they log back in, it seemed to clear things up.
all right. And, we also have our board engineer, Mr. Costa, and myself, Marina Steinle.
And it looks like Mr. Esposito just came back on.
Gary, you're muted right now.
And we can't see you either.
Gary? He's just having all around trouble tonight.
He doesn't look like he's muted anymore.
No.
Uh,
All right. Well, we'll keep going. We still, I think we've got certainly have a quorum. We'll see if we can't get Gary and Colin back on. All right, first item on the agenda for the evening is the approval of the minutes from our meeting of December 14, 2022. A draft of the minutes was circulated prior to the meeting this evening for review by the board. I open the floor for comments or questions on the draft of those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Mr.
on the
Merman.
meeting. Yes,
sir.
under the 821 Car Club portion,
Yes.
it has me listed as seconding the motion. I was recused from the entire proceeding. So you'll have to pick a name.
I think it was Mr. Cray was the second. So we'll make that change.
Great. Other than that, they're acceptable to me.
All right, I'll fix that.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay. Any other comments other than Mr. Merman? Okay, with that one modification, I will entertain a motion on the approval of the minutes.
That was Mr. Cray.
Second.
Mr. Pfeffer is a second.
All right, and I'll only call those eligible to vote. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
and Mr. Bastide. Oh, is he back yet? Not back.
I'm
yet.
back.
Oh,
Gary's
Oh,
back.
we can hear you, Gary.
Okay.
All right, Gary's back. Good.
All right,
Okay.
that motion.
Thank you, everyone. Next item this evening is memorialization. The application for 210 Manchester Road, River Edge, block 901, lot 19. Applicants are Matthew and Lauren Park. Draft of the resolution was circulated for review of the board prior to this evening's meeting. Open it to the board for comments or questions on the draft resolution. Okay. Mr. Bustede looks like he's returned. You're on mute. Can you just unmute yourself and just give us a couple of words? Just make sure
Can you hear me now?
we can hear you now.
Okay, great.
All right, we got everybody on board.
Perfect.
Okay, back to the resolutions for park. Comments, questions from the board? Okay, there being none, I will entertain a motion on the resolution.
Guys, don't be bashful.
You're just asking for a motion to approve the
Motion to
resolution.
approve. Yeah,
So move.
thank you, Mr. Pfeffer. Can I have a second?
Second.
That Mr. Craig was a second.
All right, I'll do the roll. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes,
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
and Mr. Bastide.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right. Their next topic on the agenda this evening is the reorganization of the board. Our first item is the adoption of our meeting calendar for 2023 that was previously circulated by Mr. Alter. Includes the revised meeting date for our second meeting in November as November 29th. Questions, comments from the board on the schedule as presented? Okay, there being none, may I have a motion to approve the calendar, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I think
that's
Mr. Bustede got in a second. Just before Ms. Paul, so.
The fierce competition.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Sorry.
Marita, do we want to do a roll call, or do you want to do we'll just do a voice vote?
We can just do a voice vote for the next, for these ones, yep.
Okay. All right. For adoption of the 2023 calendar, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? There being none, the 2023 calendar has been approved. All right, our next item this evening is the election of officers of the board. The first position up is chair. Open the floor to
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Darrell.
like to nominate you, Chris Caslin, to be our chair for 2023. You did a great job the last 2 years. I've admired your work, and I'm looking forward to having you as our chairman for the next year as well.
Thanks for
Second.
that. Is there anybody else who's interested in being chair? All right, we have a motion and a second from Mr. Eric Kelly and Mr. Merman. All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Any
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? I'll abstain. Well, thank you, everyone. Hopefully, we'll continue to steer the ship straight and true for the next 12 months.
Great job, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, the next officer position, vice chair. And I open the floor to nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to hog the floor, but I do want to make this nomination. Not only is he a very dear friend, but an extremely valuable member of this board. His input is always extremely welcome, well thought out. And I look forward to him to being the vice chair again for this year. And I'd like to nominate my friend Dick Merman.
Okay,
Second.
Thank you, Mr. R. Kelly. I think we have, is there a second?
I think Mike and I tied on that one.
Okay, we'll give the tie to Mr. Gibbons on that one. All right. Any further nominations for vice chair? All right, there being none, all in favor of Mr. Merman continuing as vice chair for calendar year 2023? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
All abstain. Thank you, folks. I appreciate your confidence.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. Welcome back. Next election, excuse me, next officer position this evening is board secretary. Open the floor to nominations for that position, please.
So I'm just going to keep going.
You're on a roll. Keep going.
Ryan joined, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago. He's done a tremendous job with the board. Again, somebody whose input is well respected by peers. I'm glad to also call him a friend, and I would like to renominate Ryan to be the secretary for the year 2023.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Second?
All right, Ms. Boland as a second. So we have a first, Mr. Guy R. Kelly, and then a second from Ms. Boland for Ryan Gibbons as board secretary for calendar year 2023. Any further nominations? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
Ms. Gibbons abstain. All right.
Well,
Go
thank
ahead.
you very much. Been a pleasure to be on the board and be a secretary. So thank you for your confidence. Appreciate it.
Welcome back, Ryan.
This is
All
a
right.
great team and we're lucky to have them. Thank you all.
All right, continuing on, our next category here is appointment of professionals to the board. Our first item is the appointment of the board attorney. And I believe that we have, I'll just make sure I have the. Sorry, I was looking for the, oh, here it is. Okay. For appointment to the board as the board attorney, I believe there is a nomination of Cleary, Jacoby, Alfieri, and Jacobs LLC as the board attorney. May I have a motion to approve that appointment, please?
So moved.
Mr. Gibbons, thank you. May I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Boland. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Looking forward to another year with you all.
Okay, our next position is board planner. There is a nomination for Burgess Associates Incorporated to continue as the municipal land use board planner for 2023. May I have a motion to approve Burgess in that role?
So moved?
Thank you, Ms. Boland. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, thank you all. As I mentioned, Mr. Barron's was unfortunately had a conflict in schedule this evening. He may still make the meeting, but we welcome him back as well to the board for 2023. And our final position, but certainly not least, we have a nomination for our Costa Engineering Corporation to serve as municipal land use board engineer for 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. May I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, very good. Congratulations. Welcome back, Mr. Costa.
Chairman, thank you. Members of the board, thank you so much. Mayor, good evening. I didn't think my speaker was actually working, which is probably a good thing for everybody. But thank you again, and I certainly appreciate it. And let's hopefully a lot of good things are going to happen this year. Even though the economy seems to be in a little bit of distress, I still think some stuff is going to move forward. But thank you again, and whatever you guys need from me and my staff, we are there for you guys.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Costa.
An excellent cadre of professionals. Glad to have you back.
Okay. The next item is we have new appointments that I believe Marina, I don't know if they've already been sworn in, but if not, should we do that here? Or do you want to, how do you want to handle that?
We can swear them in over Zoom since we have the video
Okay.
recorded. It's all just reappointments to new terms. We have our council liaison, class 3 member, Councilman Kenigo, to a 1-year term. Mr. Gibbons, class 4 member, to a new 4-year term, and our alternate, Mr. Bastide, to a new 2-year term. I know we just swore him in a few months ago, but he was finishing up an unexpired term, and so now we're starting a brand new 2-year term. So I think in the past, what we've done is just everyone raise their hand. We can just do everyone at the same time. You'll state your name and then say your class. When I say state your position, you'll say either class 3 member, class 5 member, or alternate number 2. And then just repeat after me otherwise. If that works. All right. So
I
if
think
you
you
just-
meant to say class
Class
4, not
4.
class 5.
Oh, yep, class 4. You're right.
So Mr. Gibbons, you're a class 4 member. Mr. Bastide, you're the alternate member number 2, and of course, Councilman Kenigo, you're class 3.
All right.
Okay.
So if you please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I,
I,
Golden
Harry
Bustard,
Kenigo,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly
solemnly
swear
swear or affirm
that I will faithfully,
that I will
that I will
faithfully,
faithfully,
impartially, and justly
impartially, and
and
justly
justly
perform all of the duties
perform all of the
perform all of the
duties
duties
of the office of, and state your office,
of the
of
office
the office of
Class 3
alternate
member
2
of the Borough of River Edge Municipal Land Use Board
of the
Borough
Borough
of
of
River
River
Edge
Municipal
Land
Land
Use
Use Board
to the best of my ability,
To the best
to the
of
best of my ability,
and that I will support the Constitution
and that
that
I
I
will
will
support
support the Constitution
of the United States and this state,
of the United
of the United
States
States
and
and
this
this
state,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I
that
will bear true faith
and
and
allegiance
to the same
to the
to the
to the
same
same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
governments established
in the United States and in this state,
in the
in
United
the United
States
States and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the
under the
authority
authority
of
of the people.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
the people. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Happy to be aboard.
Thanks.
Welcome back.
Again, great members. Thank you all for your time and your service. On behalf of Councilman Kenigo, myself, and the council, we thank you for all the time and effort you put into this board. We appreciate it.
All right. Our next agenda item this evening is a discussion concerning a proposed increase in our fee structures. There was the documentation that was shared with the board prior to the meeting concerning the present schedule of fees for various applications and the escrows associated with those applications, as well as initially proposed potential increases in those fees. So open the floor to the board for discussion as to, I guess the first question is Are increases, is an increase warranted on these fees? And if so, what sort of range are we considering? So with that, I open for discussion.
The one question I have is this, are we on par with what other towns, their fees? Are we below, normal, high? Do we have any sense of where we are in terms of other towns?
I can answer that if you'll let me.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, and I actually work in another municipality as well, and we are below what most municipalities in this area ask for escrow. So the increases are basically minimal because you don't want to hit a homeowner in the pocket if you don't have to, and I don't want to have to chase after them later either. I'm just trying to cover our costs, and since our professionals have raised their fees in many cases for the coming year, the increase is correlated to the raise in the professionals' fees.
Okay, so this would put us on whatever it is, our break even or wherever we end up with money wise, we're just, with that increase from the professionals, we're just kind of keeping that same level of
Correct,
making money or breaking even or whatever.
correct.
And I know there's a distinction by square footage for minor site plan, major site plan. And are there, in the other jurisdictions in which you have experience, is there a distinction made between commercial applications and residential applications, or is it all one fee, one schedule of fees?
It's mostly commercial applications. I mean, if you take an application like we just dealt with, Dunkin' Donuts, we're talking about $25,000 in escrow money. ILVJ 335 Johnson Avenue was 21,000. So the numbers are up there, but they respond very quickly because they're all represented by attorneys. It's very official and it works very smoothly. So I'm not concerned too much about the commercial applicants. It's the small residential, but you know, we just have to raise our fees so I don't have to chase after them for more escrow.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is our experience, Ben, we're coming up short.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I said, our experience has been that we're coming up short as far as the escrow fee versus actual costs. Is that what's
Yes.
happening?
I wouldn't say we're coming up short in the majority of cases, but even if I have a few, the amount of work that's needed to go after escrow is very high. And it's easier for me to return it if we don't use it later on than to chase after people to give me an extra $100, $300, $500. So I'd rather get it up front. And if we don't use it, I always return it.
So could you help me understand that a little bit better, like with chasing the escrow fee? Like,
Yeah.
is the fee established at the time the person does the application, or does the fee change and that's when you're looking for the additional funding?
No, the fee is with the application. So when they submit the application to me, their surveys and their site plans, the fee is set. And if it becomes a little more complicated as you panelists discuss it, the board members discuss it, you ask maybe for a further engineer's review or some other review, you ask Tom Behrens to go check something, we get billed for every single minute of their time. You don't see the invoices, but I do. And they come through fast and furiously, and you can't blame them. I mean, they're charging us for their time.
So it's the additional information and the additional cost is where the chasing of the additional escrow comes in.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, understood.
And just to be clear, there may be additional work, but in some cases, the existing escrow will cover that additional work, right? So your concern is where the additional work is not covered because it goes over the amount of escrow.
Correct.
Right.
You know, I have concerns about asking our homeowners in town for a lot of extra money. It's expensive enough as it is. the fees run just for us. For instance, what we're going to hear at the next meeting, or we heard at the last meeting, was just a porch edition that runs about $800, $900 at the onset. Then if anything extra is needed, I have to go after them for the extra. So it's a lot to ask a homeowner who's got a family and trying to improve their house. So, I'm just trying to find a good medium, a middle point, which will give us a little bit of extra money. And, the worst case is escrow goes back. By law, I have to return it. So, and I do.
I do think that's the key is if you end up taking in a little too much, then they get it back in the end anyway.
Correct. By law, their money goes into an escrow account for their application to be used strictly for their application, for legal fees, for all professional fees, engineering, planning fees, any other fees that we need specifically for that application. If it's not used, I send out what's called professional sign-off letters to each of our professionals, asking them to sign off that there's no further invoices, and if there are none, then I return the balance to the applicant.
So at what point in time are you releasing escrow funds back? Is it final approval being issued, like a CO or?
I'd say around 6 to 8 months after the application.
Okay.
Because sometimes bills flutter in, they come in slowly, or they get to me slowly. So I hold it for about 6 to 8 months, and then I have to prepare a resolution to go before the council to release the money.
Okay, so we could, so it's, in a lot of cases, it'll be significantly after the time that the variance has been granted and issued.
Correct.
Okay. And that's either way, whether you need to get more money from them or whether we need to return money to them. We don't get a final accounting until sometime after the variance has been issued.
Yes. I mean, there have been cases like, you talk about 335 Johnson, for instance, where he came back for extensions 2 years in a row, and that had to be reviewed, and we got invoices from the attorney and from other people that had to look at it, and that was 2 years later. So, in large cases where I have a lot of money, I always hold some for an extra 6 to 8 months, a year, just to be safe. But it all goes back eventually.
Can there be a process, maybe there is already, but just on the sort of the side issue of chasing people, because even with the increase, and I'm in favor of increasing the fees to stay level with the increase in professional fees, but just on a side issue to that, do we have a process whereby if the homeowner owes money, right? So the escrow has been depleted and they owe, whether it's a few hundred or a few $1,000s, does that hold up the final approval, or are we chasing them after they already have everything that they need?
Yes, I'll answer that. That's an easy answer, because the first paragraph of every resolution under whereas, after we've listed all the conditions, says that they must keep up their escrow or no permits will be issued for construction or for anything else. So it's in the resolution that they see and that everybody signs, or that the secretary and the chair signs. First paragraph says they must keep their escrow up to balance.
Well, and that was kind of the question I was trying to ask, but if some bills and invoices for professional services don't come in till months later, we could have issued the variance, they could have done the work and even closed it out if you're not seeing bills till later, right? So we wouldn't know that they've exceeded the escrow amount soon
Correct.
enough to do anything.
Correct. But that's a rare instance. That doesn't happen that often. I mean, I try to stay on top of it as much as possible. That rarely happens, but it does happen.
So I'm curious why you would have to spend a lot of time chasing people if if they can't get their permits until they pay the money?
Well, a lot of times the day after the resolution is memorialized, they'll be at the building department requesting their permits. And then my bills start to filter in little by little, or the planning board's bills start to filter in little by little. So there's a time lag there, and a lot of times the permits may be issued. The building department has been told that they will get a copy of every resolution, but they don't know, unless I tell them to withhold permits, that they owe us money. But when I do find out they owe us money, the first person I notify is the building department. So to answer your question, there's no process. There is a procedure that we follow, but it's not foolproof.
Right, I get it.
So the building department doesn't automatically check with you as applicants come in to pull permits. They're
No,
looking at their own records. Okay.
no.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just wondering, and I'm thinking of, just thinking out loud here. On the one hand, obviously, we don't want to make it too onerous for homeowners to, get their permits and start building. On the other hand, I'm just wondering if there's some process where before the buildings department issues permits, there be some period of time, whether it's 14 days or 30 days, during which you have a chance, Ed, to follow up with the professionals and say, hey, make sure you get us your final invoice by such and such a date. Because if there's any surplus money owed, we want to collect that before the permits get issued. Would there be some way to do that?
I personally don't think so, because I think there's work that's done after permits are issued. It happens a lot of times, because as I said, the day after a resolution's memorialized, they'll be at the building department, or the construction people will be at the building department asking for permits. And by the time I get all the bills in, it takes a while. So, I can't set a time frame. If you gave me 6 months, yes, but nobody wants to wait 6 months to get their building started. Especially, we're going to start to get busy as the weather gets a little warmer. As we get close to the springtime, I already have applicants calling me to get on the February, March, April already. So they want to get construction started. They're anxious.
Do we have a significant number of people who just don't pay? When you chase them, do we have to go to court, or do we have to write it off? I mean, is that a problem?
No, I always get paid. I won't tell you my methods, but I always get paid.
I don't want to know.
No, we always get our money. Just sometimes it's a little bit later than earlier.
Is there any practicality to instituting a sort of a top off on the escrow when an applicant goes into the building department as part of the process? There's a nominal top off that everybody has to make, so that there's a cushion. There's something there that gets replenished, and so that you're not totally left exposed.
Well, if I understand your question correctly, that's why I'm asking for the increase in the initial escrow. That'll give me that little cushion that I think I need.
Okay, well, I understood the increase to cover the incremental increases in professional fees that are being now charged to the borough. What I'm saying is that on top of that, is there any basis to having?
You can't cap the fees.
No, I'm not saying a cap. What I'm suggesting is that as an applicant comes in to pull the building permits, that there's an automatic, as part of the process, the applicant then has to top off the escrow of a certain amount just so that there is money in the escrow to cover, the subsequent period. Once they pull the permits, you don't have any slippage in the escrow.
We could, but we'd have to go through the mayor and council and get a resolution passed to change that, which I'm gonna have to do even just to change the fees.
Right. Right.
What about a step further? If there's a threshold, once the escrow dips under that threshold, then the homeowner must automatically increase by whatever amount we decide, 500, 1,000, whatever that may be. Since it's escrow money, it's going to be returned to the homeowner anyway. It's not that they're going to be out of money, but this way it assures that if there are bills that come in after the time, there will be plenty of money there to deal with them. That might be something this board might consider. I'm okay with the increased fees too, by the way.
Could I maybe look at this slightly differently? Is rather than putting the onus on the homeowner for them to add additional money into the escrow, what about the professionals providing, the additional fees on a little bit more timely basis? And no disrespect meant by that statement, but maybe the homeowner shouldn't be the one who's putting up additional funding. Maybe it should be a little bit faster movement between the professionals to close this out so that the homeowner can then quickly pay.
Well, you have professionals here tonight. You can question them and, ask Mr. Costa, ask Mrs. Stinley, Miss Stinley. I can't answer that really. They need to get their bills in on time, and sometimes that's difficult to do. They're very busy too.
I can comment to that just briefly. My office bills a retainer for all of the residential applications. We don't bill escrow for residential, so we don't really have that problem. We just bill escrow for the commercial matters. And like Ed said, it's usually not an issue with commercial applicants.
Yeah, I could see a difference between residential and commercial, and almost a different thing. So it doesn't seem to be, from a legal perspective, the residential doesn't have any issue and the commercial resolves itself quickly. Okay, so then that's not an issue, right? So there wouldn't be, I think it makes sense to cover the increased fee, but I don't know about adding an additional amount due to any lag or perceived lag in the billing.
Yeah, I would prefer to just increase the amount slightly, which is what I've done. And if we don't use it, return it back, rather than, go back and ask them to send me another $500 because I just got an invoice from Mr. Costa 2 months later because he had to do some extra work, some extra engineering work, or he had a second review of a site plan. It just makes it a little bit easier for me.
And I don't know which one particularly you're talking about, but a lot of times stuff comes in, it doesn't come in right away either. If, say, the board passes a resolution and they want to change in the plan, you're done. The plan might not show up for weeks or months after that with the revision that was requested. So it's not like here came, you guys said yes, memorialized it, and now the applicant disappears, and then all of a sudden they reappear again. So it might not be in that time frame. And then once that's done, as far as the planning board, then it moves over to the borough side, to the building department, to make sure what you guys actually approved ultimately gets done. And Tom's not on the screen tonight, but we have one right now where it was approved and it wasn't built in accordance with the plan. So that happens, but that's on the opposite side, on the borough side. So, but Ed, I don't know if there's more than one case at this point. I don't know. I mean, I'll certainly question my guys when I get in the morning, but if there is one that came in 2 months later, I'll find out which one it was and what it was. But again, the revised plan, honestly, might not come in for months. In another town I'm in, they showed up with plans last week on a meeting that was last night. They expected to get heard. They disappeared for 4 months. So, what do? You're not requesting more escrow 4 months ago. And then all of a sudden they resurface 4 months later.
I
So, and
have
I
a
think
question.
that's a lot of times that happens also.
So I can see where you're coming from, Mr. Costa. So, I mean, obviously, when these projects are actually done, then there shouldn't be any more attorney fee, planning fee, engineering fee. So when they get that
When you're
final,
able to plan-
they get that CO, then they're
Well,
done.
you guys are way, you're before the CO.
No, I
Once
know
the
that. I know
revisions-
that. But
Once
so
the
they,
revisions, you have a resolution you pass with conditions. That applicant has to meet those conditions, resolution compliance. So basically, you guys pass it, you say it's passed based on A, B, C, D, and E. Between Marina, myself, Tom Behrens, we have to make sure it's A, B, C, and D has been met. Once that's done, then the planning board basically is out of it, and then it moves into the borough. So there's no more bills going to the planning board side of it. Then they deal with the borough.
So where I'm going with this, so once that is actually done, once the addition is put on, once the patio is done and they get the final sign off, at that point, we really should know what your fee is, what Tom's fee is. At that point,
No, you're too far down the road. You don't even get that far yet. Planning board is over when you do resolution, when they submit a set of plans revised that conforms to the resolution. That's it. Nothing is built.
right,
And
but
at
I'm
that
saying when it
point-
is done, we know that there aren't going to be any more engineering fees.
Not for planning board matters, no. And that's when Ed sends in a sign off letter. We sign off, we ship it back.
Right, so at
That
that
doesn't mean
point,
they
all
started,
that,
that doesn't mean they pulled a permit. That doesn't mean they started construction, none of the above.
right, but so I'm saying when they actually do the work, when the addition has been added, when the patio has been done, at that point, we should know that it's signed off on, the permit was cleared, all of that stuff is done. So at that point, the money should really be pretty much ready to go back to that we shouldn't really have to wait 6 months for them to get it after all of their work is done. That's where I'm asking. So at that point, it really should be
No,
fair
you're
to
not
give them the
following what
money
I'm
back.
saying. When this board approves a resolution with conditions, it's up to the applicant to resubmit those plans to make sure it follows those conditions.
Right.
Once those conditions are met, we review it, Tom, myself, Marina, and then it's over. Whether they build, whether they do an addition, whether they do anything else, it has nothing to do with the planning board. It moves into the borough. There's two separate things.
Right, but I'm just saying that's when they should be able to get their money back, when the
Correct.
project is complete.
Right, but if they don't show up for months,
Well, then that's on them.
that's on them. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, if they're going to wait 6 months to do their project, well, then they can wait for their escrow.
Right.
But if they do it tomorrow and the patio gets done next week and the permit is signed off on, that it was all done legit and there were no changes in plans,
Mhm.
at that point, it should be reasonable that all of the professional fees are in and they're
Correct.
getting their money back within a reasonable time after that. That's really
Correct.
where I'm going with it here.
Correct. Yes.
So I think that would be reasonable for them to be able to get that, and hopeful that our professionals at that point can get that in expeditiously, so they can get their money back. But I agree. I think the fees increases, if that's needed, that's needed. And I also think, some sort of threshold, when there's 10% left in their escrow, and the project is still going, that they have to kick in some new number, whatever makes sense. Especially on some of these tricky projects.
I think.
And then you
I
got
think
guys that build walls without permits, neighbors get involved, rebuild the wall, don't do it correctly. And then there's a lot of stuff that goes on that probably a lot of individuals don't really know what's actually happening with a lot of these. And I'm sure Eileen sees this too. The quality of the contractor today is not the same as the quality of the contractor years ago. So everything is a lot harder, whether it's on the borough side, whether it's on the private side, it's difficult. And you probably see it yourself, Ryan, doing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm fine with the fees changing.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's,
just
I
try to
know
get
there's
that money back.
attorneys on the screen. They're probably busy also because of that reason. So yeah, it's not easy is what I'll say, but
I'm with you.
So at this juncture, it sounds like there's some consensus right now, and maybe at this point, we consider the increase in the fee schedule. We can always come back and revisit this, we can have Ed come back and report, based on if the increase is approved, we can have Ed report on what he's experiencing as a result of the increase, in say 6-8 months or something like that. If the increase is approved. So at this point, I think what we'll do is we should probably have a motion on whether the board feels that the increase in the fees is desirable, and we should recommend to the Borough Council to consider for approval. Unless anybody has any other questions or comments on the topic.
You ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Ready for a motion. If there's no further comments from the
Okay.
board on the topic, I will take a motion, Mr. Merman.
All right, I'll make a motion that the fees as presented be accepted as a recommendation to the mayor and council for consideration, and that we revisit this topic again in our next reorganization next year. And that's said in the view of the changing economy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Merman. I have a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Givens. Okay, thanks, sir. Ms. Sniley, if you want to call roll call, or do you want to the voice?
We can
vote
do a roll
discussion?
call, that's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pepper,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Councilman Kenigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito,
Yes.
Mr. Bastide.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Thank you.
And while we've been talking, I did get a message from Mr. Behrens that he's still stuck in his other meeting, and doesn't look like he's going to make it here this evening. So, in any case, that concludes our agenda for this evening, unless anyone has any other topics, conversations.
I just have one question. I know the mayor and council have gone to hybrid meetings. Has there been any discussion or thoughts on having our meetings in person? Is there a willingness or ability to do that?
So let me just chime in here. The mayor and council is not going to hybrid in the foreseeable future. We did the hybrid because of for the newly elected. It was something that, Daria, if you want to chime in, something that was mentioned at the meeting. Maybe we can do it again, but it was labor intensive to be able to achieve this hybrid program. And in addition to that, the Seni Die meeting had no volume when it was all said and done. The reorg did, which is why you might notice on the YouTube or on the mayor's Facebook page, you only see the reorg, you don't see the Seni Die. So we have not moved, the council and has not chosen to move to a hybrid as a planned posture. But if the need arises, we would try to attempt it again. Councilman Kenigo, would you agree with that summation?
Yeah, we extended a courtesy to the new councilman coming in and Councilwoman Montana Cohen. I didn't find it particularly comfortable, to be perfectly honest. We were kind of crammed in. I would imagine this board is much larger than the council and the mayor, so cramming everybody in would also be problematic. The library was very accommodating, and we thank them for it. But I think this is a more effective means of getting our work done. We've done it for a couple of years already, and it's only until we've finished with the work at Borough Hall, and then we'll be back in business. But I wouldn't particularly want to, but I wouldn't particularly vote against it either if we wanted to have a couple of meetings during the year in person. But I like I said, I think for the reasons I stated, this is probably better, in my opinion, anyway.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you had moved all of your meetings. Personally, I'd rather be in person, but if it's labor intensive and we're cramped in, then leave it be. But yeah, I thought all their meetings were moved, so I'm mistaken. Thanks.
Yeah, so that is our agenda for this. Marita, do we need to open to the public for any reason? We don't have anything.
No, we don't need to open to the public unless there is a hearing.
Here, okay, so we're covered on that. Any further business from the board? All right,
Can I just make a note? I've left envelopes at the police dispatcher's desk for everybody, which includes site plans and surveys for the next coming up meeting on January 25th. If you want hard copies, go to the dispatcher's desk.
okay. Thank you for that, Ed. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Mr. Gray, thank you. So may I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Boland. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? We stand adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Not everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.